What if I told you there was a company worth $47 billion that didn't actually have a real business? A company that convinced the richest investors on the planet to pour in billions, while secretly bleeding money faster than anyone noticed. And the man behind it wasn't just reckless. He was orchestrating one of the biggest deceptions in modern business history. What happened next will shock you, because everything you thought you knew about this revolutionary company was a lie. It started small, just two guys in New York City, renting out and used office space. Nothing revolutionary about that, but the way they sold it, that's what made it powerful. They didn't say they were renting desks. They said they were building community, a place where creators, entrepreneurs, and dreamers could come together. One of them looked at the other and said, "Why does work have to be boring? Why can't offices feel like home?" And from that simple idea, WeWork was born. It was 2010, and the world was still recovering from the financial crash. Young people wanted flexibility. They wanted something different from those gray cubicles their parents worked in. So when this new company came around with sleek interiors, neon signs, coffee bars, and open lounges, people were obsessed. It felt fresh. Investors started showing up. "This is the future," they said. "This isn't real estate. This is a tech company." And just like that, WeWork became something bigger than it really was. Money poured in like water. Expansion exploded faster than anyone could keep track of. New York, London, Tokyo, Tel Aviv, San Francisco. Every major city had a WeWork opening up like it was part of some unstoppable movement. Billboards popped up with glossy photos of smiling entrepreneurs, and sleek spaces lit in warm gold tones. Social media was flooded with posts of people working from bean bags, sipping coffee from glass mugs, surrounded by plants and art. It looked like heaven for millennials who hated cubicles. At the center of it all was the man himself, tall, magnetic, always barefoot, with long hair that made him look more like a rock star than CEO. He spoke with the confidence of someone who didn't just believe in what he was saying, he felt it. He talked about changing the world like it was a business plan. He told his investors, "We're not just creating office spaces, we're creating a new way of living." Sometimes he'd drink tequila in the middle of board meetings, laugh at questions about numbers, and say things like, "It's not about profits, it's about purpose." People laughed, but they also leaned in. He had that rare kind of charm that makes logic disappear. Every word out of his mouth made you want to believe him. He could walk into a room full of billionaires and have them eating out of his hand in minutes. When someone said, "Isn't this just a real estate company?" he'd smile and say, "No, we're a technology company disguised as real estate." And for a while, everyone bought it. Inside the offices, it didn't feel like a normal job. It felt like a religion. Employees were told they weren't working for a company. They were part of a mission. One community manager from London said she honestly believed it. "I used to tell people, you're not just renting a desk, you're joining a movement," she said later. It felt exciting. "I thought we were a part of something that was going to change the way people work forever." The energy was addictive. Every week there were events, happy hours, yoga classes, motivational talks, networking nights. There was music, free beer, and posters on the walls that said things like, "Do what you love, and together we work." New hires were told to dream big, stay optimistic, and trust the vision. Questioning the company's direction wasn't just discouraged. It was seen as betrayal. Everyone was too busy being inspired to notice what was quietly unraveling beneath the surface. Then, little by little, the cracks started to show. The same community manager began to notice things that didn't add up. Desks that used to be full were now empty. Budgets that were once overflowing were suddenly slashed. Coffee machines went unrepaired. Printers stopped working, and support requests took weeks to process. "I went to my boss," she said, "and told him half our members weren't renewing. He told me not to worry. He said, 'We're in growth mode. Once we scale, the profits will come.' But the profits never came. Behind the inspirational posters and glossy Instagram stories, the company's model was dangerously fragile. WeWork was signing massive long-term leases, 10, sometimes 15 years, on entire buildings. Then they'd sublease those floors to freelancers, startups, and small companies who could cancel their memberships anytime. It was like buying a mansion with a 30-year mortgage and renting out the rooms on Airbnb by the week. The second guest left, you were stuck with the bills. And those bills were growing. Every new location looked amazing, but each one cost millions to open and millions more to keep running. Furniture, renovation, staff, utilities, it all added up. The more WeWork grew, the deeper the hole got. By 2018, the company's annual losses had crossed billions. But when anyone raised concerns, the founder brushed them off with a grin. "Don't look at the losses," he'd say. "Look at the growth." And he wasn't wrong. Not about the growth, at least. WeWork was one of the fastest growing companies in the world. Every week there was a new headline about expansion into another city or another country. But behind that momentum was chaos. Employees worked insane hours, new spaces opened before they were even finished, and costs spiraled out of control. The faster they grew, the faster they burned through cash. Investors didn't want to see it. They wanted to believe the hype. They called it a revolution in work culture, a tech-enabled community movement, the next big thing after Facebook and Uber. But inside those glass walls filled with slogans and smiles, the truth was simple. WeWork wasn't growing toward success. It was growing straight into disaster. Then came SoftBank, one of the biggest investors on the planet. They looked at WeWork and saw something magical. "This isn't a real estate company," they said. "This is the next Facebook, the next Google." They poured billions into it. Suddenly, WeWork wasn't just opening offices. They were buying schools, starting apartment buildings, even launching gyms. The dream had officially become a fantasy. There was a night in New York when one of the early investors met the founder at a private event. The founder raised a glass of tequila and said, "One day, WeWork will be worth $1 trillion. The investor laughed, thinking it was a joke. But the man wasn't joking. He believed it. And maybe that was a problem. As 2019 rolled around, it was finally time for WeWork to go public. The moment that was supposed to make everything real. For years, the company had been fueled by hype, storytelling, and billion-dollar investments. Now, the numbers would finally be revealed to the world. The paperwork was filed. The media was ecstatic. Headlines declared it the most anticipated IPO of the decade. Investors couldn't wait to get a piece of the company that claimed to be redefining how people work. But when analysts actually opened the documents, the excitement turned to disbelief. What they found inside wasn't the story of a revolutionary company. It was a financial nightmare. The numbers didn't add up. The company had billions in losses. Its revenue couldn't even begin to cover its long-term lease obligations. And buried in the fine print were red flags that no one could ignore. The founder, the same charismatic visionary who once promised to elevate the world's consciousness, had personally bought buildings and then leased them back to WeWork, effectively making money off his own company. He had also trademarked the word "we" and sold it to WeWork for $5.9 million. That meant the company literally had to pay its founder for the right to use its own name. When that detail hit the news, it was chaos. One analyst, after reading through the IPO filing, summed it up perfectly. "This isn't a business model. This is a bonfire of hubris." From there, everything started to unravel. Reporters began digging deeper into the company's culture and finances. Former employees started talking, and what they described didn't sound like a world-changing startup. It sounded like a cult. They talked about all-night parties, tequila shots and meetings, a company jet being used for private trips to exotic islands. The line between work and party had completely disappeared. One former employee said, "It started feeling like a religion. You couldn't question anything. If you did, you were called negative. The only acceptable emotion was belief." Behind the scenes, investors were starting to panic. Some had ignored the warning sign for years because they were blinded by the founder's confidence and charm. But now, with the numbers exposed, the illusion was gone. And in one board meeting, after weeks of tense discussions, an investor finally asked a question nobody had dared say out loud. "What if this doesn't work?" The room went silent. The founder smiled, that same magnetic smile that had once convinced billionaires to write blank checks, and said, "It will, because people believe in us." But belief wasn't enough anymore. Within weeks, the IPO was pulled. The valuation that had once hit $47 billion collapsed almost overnight. From 47 down to 8, the founder was forced to resign. His investors, once his biggest supporters, turned on him. SoftBank, the company's largest backer, had to step in and take control, pouring billions more just to keep the lights on. The fallout was brutal. Thousands of employees lost their jobs. Startups that had built their businesses inside WeWork offices suddenly found themselves uncertain about the future. Landlords who had signed massive leases were left chasing payments that might never come. And all those people who had once proudly said they were part of the We generation, they were left wondering how everything went so wrong. But what's strange, almost unbelievable, is that WeWork didn't completely die. The brand survived. The building stayed open. People still worked there. But the energy was gone. The idealism, the charisma, the illusion of movement, all of it evaporated. What was once a $47 billion dream had turned into a cautionary tale. A company that promised to change how people work ended up becoming a symbol of excess, ego, and the dangers of believing your own myth. In the end, WeWork didn't just collapse because of bad math or risky leases. It collapsed because it started believing it was invincible. And when a company starts thinking like that, reality always catches up. People started asking the real questions. How did everyone miss it? How did the smartest investors in the world not see what was so obvious? Maybe they didn't want to see it. Because in the startup world, everyone wants to believe in the next big thing. Everyone wants to find the next unicorn. There was a journalist who covered the story from the start. She said, "I remember meeting people from WeWork who truly thought they were saving the world. That's what made it so tragic. They weren't lying. They were just too deep in the story to see the truth." And maybe that's what this story really is. Not just about greed, but about belief. The kind of belief that blinds you. Because the founder wasn't evil. He was just convinced that confidence could create reality. That if you speak big enough, act bold enough, and raise enough money, the world will eventually bend to your vision. But money runs out. Confidence cracks. And eventually, math always wins. After the collapse, the founder walked away with hundreds of millions in exit payments. Meanwhile, thousands of employees were laid off. Offices were shut down. Dreams faded. And in the end, the lesson was clear. You can't build a skyscraper of dreams on a foundation of hype, because sooner or later, it all comes down. A few years later, when someone asked a former investor what he thought of WeWork now, he just sighed. It was never about offices, he said. It was about a man who sold a story too well. And we all bought it. That's the thing about lies that are wrapped in ambition. They don't look like lies until it's too late. If you like this story, the next one will make you question how much of Silicon Valley success is actually real. Watch that next. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this. Deep dives into the rise and fall of digital empires and the lessons behind every opportunity. Because in the world of tech, small oversights can become catastrophic failures. What do you think is the next WeWork in this dispensation? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, comment, and share with people passionate about the inner happenings of the tech world.